Hello, students. One of the things that I wanted to do before we started really getting into this school year was to do a survey on the books that you've read. Now, I've not really done a survey quite like this before, and you'll probably take another in class that'll mention books that aren't on this list. But I wanted to put together a list of some of the books that are most popular with students, both in elementary school and in early middle school. The list that I have put together here has quite a few books on it. Some of them you may have read as part of assignments in class. Some of them you may have read alone. Some of them you've probably never heard of or never seen before, and that's all totally okay. The point of this is not to make you feel like you've not read a lot of books. The point of this is to help me as a teacher see what you've read, maybe what you're most interested in, and to start coming up with ideas for our two novel studies that we'll be doing this year. I wanted to go through the different parts of this survey just so you had an idea of what exactly you were being surveyed on as you go through it. So, part one of this survey lists the 19 or 20 most popular books and series read last year by sixth graders. Okay, so you were fifth graders last year, so a lot of these, you may not have heard of or read yet, and that's okay. These books are extremely popular as recorded through the Accelerated Reader program. So these are the books that kids took the most tests on and passed. The very top of that list had the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series, and I'm willing to bet that a lot of you had read a book from that series before. It's extremely popular. They're very quick reads. They're pretty funny, and a whole lot of students, regardless of who they are, seem to like them. If you've not read one before, you should totally start out with the first one, because if you like it, you'll have a ton of novels to read after it. For doing this survey, let's say that you've read this book before, you would just click yes, and it'll put a little check mark there, and you'll indicate that you have read a book from that series. I'm not asking if you've read every book from that series, just that you've read a book from it. Continuing down the list, the second most popular book last year in the sixth grade was Wonder, and that's probably because there was a major movie that came out for it. Wonder is actually a series. There's a few books in it. If you've read them all, awesome. Lots of people love it as well. The third most popular on the list was the Brian Saga series, and most of you are probably just familiar with it from the book Hatchet. There's actually several books in that series, so if you enjoyed Hatchet, you should totally pick up another one of them. There's books that detail what happens to Brian after he's rescued. There's books that detail what would have happened if Brian wasn't rescued, and even more than that. They're all pretty good, at least the 3 or 4 that I've read. Next coming up would be the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. There's a lot of different series that that author has written based on different mythologies. The Percy Jackson series is still the most popular. It's a very long series. If you've not read it, you could try it. I don't want to go through every single one of these because it would take forever. Number of the Stars came in next, followed by Freak the Mighty. The Wrinkle in Time series is popular this year, despite the fact that it's an older book, partly because there was recently a movie. Tuck Everlasting has always been a popular middle school book. The Giver is an extremely good book. It is also read by our 8th grade students as part of their novel studies, or at least it has been the last couple of years. I would recommend probably not getting into the Giver series because it is a little bit more mature and because students read it in 8th grade. However, if you want to go ahead and try to tackle that, you're welcome to give it a go. It's pretty awesome. Bud Not Buddy came in next. It's a book by Christopher Paul Curtis. We actually read another book by him, The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963, last year as one of our novel studies. We may do so again this year. And coming up again is the book I just mentioned. It's read by a lot of 6th graders. It's really good. Holes is always popular with 6th graders. Many of you have probably watched the Hunger Games movies. If you've not, they're pretty awesome. The books are even better. The books are fairly mature, they're fairly long, but they're extremely good if you want to get into something a little bit different. Recently popular books by an author called Raina Telgemeier are pretty popular. They're very quick reads. They're more like graphic novels. The Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket is also very popular, partly because it recently had a Netflix series. Many of you have read the Dork Diaries series books. These are also popular and very similar to the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books in many ways. They're very quick reads. Where the Red Fern Grows is an older book, but still popular with middle schoolers. The Harry Potter series is great. It's also extremely long, especially some of the later books. I would recommend at least the first few for sixth grade. Walk Two Moons, and that brings up that section. Those were the top 19 or 20 books for sixth graders last year. That doesn't necessarily mean that you'll like every single one of those, but it might be worth trying one or two of them if you've not read them before, especially if you've read several others on the list and enjoyed them. The next section that you're going to come up upon probably has less books that you've read. These books are pretty popular, but not quite as popular as the ones above. These are books that either won the Newbery Medal or they were runners up to winning the Newbery Medal. Newbery Medal is given out every year to honor books that are supposed to be very good novels for children and middle grades readers. I would recommend trying out just about any of these. I've read several of them. They're pretty awesome. And I'm willing to bet that you could find probably almost every single one in our library. If it says winner next to it, of course, it won the medal that year. If it says honor next to it, that means it came as a runner up. I put something like the last 10 or 15 years worth of books on here. If you've not heard of many of these before, that's totally okay. I know lots of students have read the crossover before. That's pretty popular. Again, this list goes on. If you've not read any of them, that's awesome because you have a ton of books that might be really good for you to try. Rounding out the survey is just a list of other popular middle school books. And I found these in lists online. I looked through books that my students read last year and enjoyed or passed tests on. I looked through, recommendations on books that I've had students give me before. There's a lot of books on this list that should appeal to a whole lot of different tastes. If you have read it, just check the little box next to it and tell me that you have. If you've not, you're welcome to go on. The Miscalculations of Lightning Girl by Stacey McAnulty was a book that we read as an entire school last year, and a ton of students really liked it. If you're looking for something new to try out, there's everything from, short novels, graphic novels on here to, books you might have read in second or third grade. And I'd love for you to check any on here that you've read and let me know. I'd also like to get recommendations from you as we go through the school year. I've read a lot of these books, but nowhere near all of them. And I do like to read middle grades and young adult stuff from time to time to help me decide what, books we might cover in class. So please let me know. I hope that you enjoy the survey, and we should begin soon.